Things to think about when you're planning a space to put your water rack. I wanted an area that was away from everything. So this is a basement area room where the kids don't go. My wife doesn't come down here because look at this horrible linoleum floor. It's just will keep any woman in her right mind away. This room happened to have its own heating system so that I could regulate the temperature of the room and make sure that the water tanks never freeze. And it also is in close proximity to a good water source where I can hook up a water hose and fill, and also use the sink to drain the tanks when it comes time to change out the water. This is going to be the back side of the water rack. I've already assembled these pieces. I'm going to go over how I did it. The 3 boards here are 4x6s. I went ahead and notched them out to accommodate 2x4s, and I did that because I wanted the weight of the barrels to be integrated into the wood instead of having the 2x4s attached to the outside of the wood where the weight was resting on whatever I used to fasten them, like screws. I'm a little out of breath because this thing's heavy. I just dragged it in here. These are basically 2x4 hangers. You can find them at any Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. They're not real expensive. They run about $1.50. And I really like them because they give me a quick and easy way to hang a 2x4, which will later support the weight of the barrel, the underside belly of the barrel. And it was just an economical way to do it. This seems a little bit stronger than just relying upon screws to come through, even though at one end they will be supported by screws. And I've gone ahead and made all my drill holes for all my crossbars and other pieces that I'm going to use to take care of it. So basically in each one of these holes we're going to fit a barrel long ways. I went ahead and made it for 6 barrels, even though I only have 3. I plan on getting 3 more barrels and putting them on the other side soon, and it was just cheaper to build a rack now that holds 6 instead of building one now that only holds 3 and having to build another 3-story rack later. Okay, now I've got the front side of the rack in here. It's built the same way. It's just a mirror image of the other one. Same 2x4s, kind of notched into the 4x6s. I've got the hangers on this side, kind of offset from the other hangers, and I'll go into more detail as this thing gets put together. I had gone ahead and measured this room. It's about 7 foot 3 inches tall because it's got a drop ceiling. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't make it too tall where I was hitting the ceiling. Another thing to think about is, getting this thing into your house. I had to go down a flight of stairs and make some tight corners, so I had to build this project in the garage and then disassemble it and drag it down here to put together. So these are the cross pieces that I'm going to use. Since I assembled this in the garage, I went ahead and marked which pieces go where, and those will correspond to letters and numbers on the front and back of the rack. I've also got some longer pieces which I think I'm going to put in first. These are going to be my cross supports. I went ahead and decided to put everything together with hardware that I think will, bear the weight of these 6 55-gallon drums a little bit better. You've got to remember that each one of these drums is going to weigh about 400 pounds. So the weight adds up pretty quickly on whatever rack you're putting it on. So I think this would be a better idea for anyone than maybe using screws alone, just because they have a little bit better shear strength than a screw. Then I'm just using a 1/4 inch bolt, 1/4 inch nut, 1/4 inch washer, and just a wrench to put it all together. So I'll start with the cross supports and I'll just kind of update you as I go. This is the first cross support. I plan on putting 4 cross supports in, just to give it a little bit more rigidity and strength. Alright, so there you have it. All 4 of my cross supports or diagonal supports are put in, and that's going to give it a little bit more rigidity, help strengthen this whole structure. The next thing I need to put in are my horizontal supports that go on the ends. There'll be 3 of those on each section I'll go ahead and start putting those on. Anytime you can get a helper to help you out, it's always nice to have an extra pair of hands, and she's doing a good job of putting these nuts on for me. Okay, I just finished installing the horizontal supports. There's 3 of them. These are going to further increase the strength of this rack, and I'll be putting some more on that end. And then we'll get started on the center supports, which will go in the middle here to hold up the barrels. Okay, we've got our first of our barrel supports put in, and as you can see, one side of the 2x4 rests on the brackets we talked about earlier, and the other side just screws in. I decided to use 3-inch decking screws so that they go deep into the board that it's holding up, and that's going to give it a lot more strength. These 2 boards will allow the barrel to rest upon them, and right here at the center mark would be the center of the barrel, so the curvature of the barrel is going to go in between here. It's going to give it a lot of support. We'll be installing 2 on each of the levels, and that way we'll be able to hold the 6 barrels. Okay, let's see. I went ahead and put in the barrels temporarily just so you can kind of see how everything fits. We've got our cross supports in here now, along with our diagonal supports that we put in to begin with. And then we've got our barrel supports. They're up underneath here. You can see how they support the either side of that barrel. As that barrel fills, it will collapse down on top a little bit more than it is right now. And I still have room around the sides for a little bit of expansion. You know, I don't know if these things expand and contract very much, but I wanted to give it a little bit of room. Next steps are going to be put in some braces here in the corners, just some wedged pieces to keep this barrel from rolling side to side. And I also am going to put in some supports in the back, some cross pieces from here to here that will go run diagonal on each level, because I wanted to add just a little bit more rigidity so it doesn't flex so much side to side. You know, the whole thing seems to move a little bit too much. I'm uncomfortable with that due to the weight, so I want to make it as stable as possible. You'll notice that we've got enough clearance here to you know, put a bucket or something underneath it. That's important. You don't want this right up on the ground. If you did that, you're not going to be able to get anything under it. And to give myself a little bit more flexibility, I'm going to install a piece of flexible hose from here off it so I can kind of move that hose where I want to. Speaking of hoses, to explain how this is going to work, we're going to use this clear flexible hosing to chain or link all the barrels together. So a piece will come off of this and go into that one, and then from that one it'll go into that. I'm sorry, from there it'll go down to this one. I'll give you a picture of it when it's all done, and that will allow me to fill it sequentially. I can just install a fill port at the bottom, and it will fill each barrel by just forcing the air up and out the top. I'm going to put another spigot just like that one at the top so I can control the air, you know, in and out of the barrel, and that way I can increase the flow rate and stuff like that if I need to. Another nice thing is I've got it off the floor enough where I don't have to worry about the water leaching anything out of my concrete or linoleum, and I've got it far enough away from the wall where I don't have to worry about it leaching anything through the drywall. Leaching does happen if you put your barrels right up against something like concrete or store it near something like fuel containers. That water will absorb those chemicals. I don't know why it does it. I'm sure there's some science behind it. Maybe somebody could comment on why that happens. But it does happen, so I just wanted to try to avoid it. As soon as I get those supports to keep it from rolling and the cross members in there, then I'll close off the video and give you guys a shot of it. As you can see, what I've done is I've taken clamps and just kind of pre-positioned where I want these cross supports to be. I'm having to kind of lean against the wall that's right here, so I don't really have a good angle. But maybe from this side you can see that those cross supports are going to, I think, do 2 things. One, they're going to give me more rigidity, keep this thing from, you know, leaning back and forth. And another little thing it looks like it's going to do is be able to slightly overlap the bottom rim of the barrel once I push it back a little bit, and that's going to help me with rolling. These it just turned out that these things will kind of have a twofold purpose to keep this barrel from rolling left or right and help to make the whole rack more stable. I'm going to go ahead and drill some pilot holes and then sink in some screws and finish this up. One of the most important things you'll need to install are going to be triangular pieces of wood to keep your barrels from rolling. I guess there's a few different ways you could do this. I've chosen just to use some of my scrap wood and make these little triangular blocks, kind of like you'd make for like a door stop. And then I'm going to install them here in the positions just like that to keep the barrel from being able to roll side to side. The position of these should be not right up against the barrel. Give yourself a little bit of room so that you can wiggle your barrels in and off the rack so that you don't get bound up. Once you have them in place, draw a little line where that triangular piece ends, and then if you're going to do all the triangular pieces at the same time like I am, it's a good idea to label them in pairs so that after you take them all off and you're left with a bunch of triangular blocks on the floor, you know which ones went where. After you've made your marks, go ahead and remove your barrel, and then you want to drill some pilot holes. It's going to be real important that you drill the pilot holes in these blocks of wood, otherwise they're going to split. There's just not enough material there to keep that from happening. So let your drill save you a little bit of work by taking the time to drill some nice pilot holes so that your screws won't split your wood. As soon as I finish putting all these on, I'll be right back. All the triangular barrel supports are in now. Keep it from rolling back and forth. What I did is I just tacked them with screws down here. It made them real solid. One thing I noticed while I was doing is that this metal piece, well, it's I don't know if you can even see it, but it's up underneath there, right there. So I couldn't drill through that. So you got to be careful to make sure that when you sink your pilot holes, that you don't try to drill into that metal. So I just made it so the screws are on either side. Okay, now that we've got both of these blocks in here, you can see that it's going to be very stable. It's not going to roll. So that's exactly what you're looking for, is to make it so that it doesn't roll side to side and hurt anybody. So while my helper was cleaning up, I noticed that these little bolts that are coming out are just about eye level with her. So that's real dangerous. And since this is going to be a room where we store other things, I don't want there to be a problem with her hitting her head on that or maybe catching her feet or our feet on those. So we're going to go ahead and take a hacksaw and cut them off short. So I wish I would have bought shorter, maybe probably 3-inch bolts instead of 5. So if you're thinking about doing the same thing, you might want to go ahead and start with shorter bolts. That way you don't have to clip them off with a hacksaw. Okay, we got them all kind of cut off there, making it a little safer to walk around them. Some of them I left on, like the ones here at the top. I mean, that's over 7 feet tall. That's not going to hit anybody in the head, not anybody in my family anyways. And I haven't installed the little brackets to keep the barrels from rolling on this side yet, because I just don't have barrels yet. As soon as funds become available, I'll be buying 3 more of these, and that'll give my family, over 300 gallons of water, and that's what we're looking for. Next step is to install the plumbing. and then we'll start filling the tanks up.